Well, welcome to our Congress member, the Most Honorable Yvette Clarke, and to SosoBone for hosting this Fireside Chat. And really to Congress member, you have been so generous with your time to keep the community informed and so diligent about the issues that impact our community. That is always a pleasure to have you as a guest and to reinforce your history and heritage in the deep roots that you've had in our community. That you didn't come to us in empty hands. You came to us out of a deep root of your parents who have served in this community and have served the people of the community for decades. You come deep roots of your grandparents who in Jamaica were stalwarts. So you're coming from a deep pedigree that we know and understand as a community, and we celebrate and salute. And so we know when we speak to you, you are deeply rooted in this community, you're deeply rooted in the value, and you're deeply rooted in its future. And so it's such a pleasure to welcome you and to be able to hear from you as you go the program and policies that we know you have instituted, and to emphasize your commitment, a deep, deep commitment to a people who are growing, transforming, and need to know how rooted you are and how expansive your views can be. So welcome to our SosoBone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rodney. Thank you for that wonderful and gracious introduction to Professor SosoBone, to Dale, and to Collette. It's great to be on this program with you today. I think that we have to level set with the American people. We have to level set with our communities as immigrants to the United States, some who have achieved citizenship, others who are residents of the United States, and the global community, quite frankly, the Caribbean region, that we are in a very challenging time right now. It's a time that many of us have never lived through previously, where you have a full frontal assault coming from a government that is responsible for governing this nation. And they have weaponized governance to espouse white supremacist ideologies, full stop. And so in this moment, we are fighting on multiple levels to navigate our people through what is certain to be, has already been, a very tumultuous time in the United States of America. However, I am of good courage because I know that our ancestors faced many of these challenges in a time where they did not have the tools at their disposal, the intergenerational knowledge that we have, but were victorious in really fulfilling for the American people the promises of the United States Constitution, and that is to be a democracy. In this moment, there are those who've resented that we made the United States truly democratic, in that we fought for voting rights, we fought for civil rights. And on the back of all of those rights were the rights that every single American could utilize to liberate themselves as well, in coalition to a large extent with the Black community that fought and won this battle. Here we are 60 years later, and Donald Trump has become a utility. If he's not white supremacist, they certainly are using him and his administration to try to push back the hands of time, to restrict and to eliminate the voting rights of Black people across this nation, primarily in the Deep South, where they red states, as we call them, have done mid-decade redistricting and are in the midst of seeing their right to vote diluted by these folks who don't respect their human dignity and their rights under the Constitution of the United States to elect and to select leadership that come from their lived experiences. And we see a constant struggle while corruption is allowed to flourish for us to make ends meet in our communities. Basic things like being able to make sure that your families are fed, our families are fed, are well educated, have access to quality health care. All of those things being cut. We see an immigration system that has been weaponized to go after human beings that in the most violent of ways, and to deny them the opportunity to live out the American dream. We've witnessed there are many layers to all of this. Add to it that alongside the corruption or baked into it is a war that was not sanctioned by the United States Congress, as is enshrined in the Constitution of the United States of America. And so we find ourselves with a rogue presidency that has been utilized by a manner of different interests who have sort of come together for their own individual or corporate means to essentially commandeer the United States government and restrict and restrain the ability of average everyday Americans to have a voice and to be a part of the shaping of an agenda, a policy agenda that makes sure that all people are treated with dignity, with respect, and that the resources that they put into a government is working for them and not for the well-connected and the well-established with all the means in the United States of America. So we are in a battle. We are in a battle. And I know that given the ancestry, given the knowledge that we have as a people, we will not, under any circumstances, go back. And that means that we have to activate, we have to engage, whatever we can do in our little spheres of influence, that we utilize it now to make sure that anyone who is 17 that will be 18 by the time the election comes is registered to vote. And not only are they registered to vote, that they go out to vote. Anyone who will be 18 and going up need to be out voting. That is the power in this democracy. And it's time that we unleash it.
Well, thanks very much, Congressmember, and it's well said. It's well said, and we certainly have to be mindful of what you have laid out for us. And so, I would like to open the floor, as they say, to the other members of the panel to react to and ask questions that they might have of you with respect to, in particular, what can we do? What is in our hands to do as you're instructing us to fight this good fight? Collette, are you there? And do you want to take us off?
Good. I'm so glad, grateful for the opportunity, Representative Clarke. I'll tell you, as I'm listening, the question, how can we help, which Mr. Rodney just spoke to. When you speak of the battle that we're in as soldiers ourselves, it's really important to me to understand how we can use these spheres of influence that we have. Because I currently sit in the Caribbean. I'm in Trinidad and Tobago right now. And yes, the spheres of influence that I personally have sits both between the Caribbean and New York City and across, the New York City, New Jersey, and so on. And it's important to me that I understand how us in the Caribbean and those of the Caribbean diaspora are able to assist as soldiers ourselves with the work that you're doing and how we can have impact. So anything you could share there would be helpful.
Absolutely. One of the lifelines that we all share, because we're on this platform today, is social media. We all have virtual lives. And what is missing in this moment, I believe, is the connection that we have one to another. We do a lot of socializing on our platforms. We influence and like a lot of the discussion that is taking place. The question is, what are we discussing? How are we sharing with one another the moment that we're in? And how are we empowering those around us to get into this fight? That means if every day you have to post, get out and vote on your page, then you do that. If it means that, and encourage those within your influence to use their spheres of influence to do likewise. You know, we have to counteract all of the propaganda, the misinformation, the disinformation, the voter suppression tactics that are being peddled to our people to essentially, surrender their power to the people who have already demonstrated that they're trying to do them in. You know, I've heard people make every excuse under the sun for not using their power, which in the United States of America is their right to vote. And then complain that no one's doing anything. Well, we all have to do something. We all have to go out and vote, right? Let's educate. I think that for Caribbean American people and the Caribbean diaspora, we need to really take accounting for the blessings that we ultimately receive in being part of this sort of global society. We have a unique position being hyphenated Americans in many ways, that we have the ability to share those stories and why it's so important for us to fight in this moment. A lot of folks aren't aware that what have made it possible for people of color to immigrate over time and to build up the communities in which they've lived was the Civil Rights Act, because it opened up the door for there to be a lack of discrimination in who was receiving visas to come to the United States. Now, some people were able to come prior to the Voting Rights Act, but not in the numbers that we saw in the decades after the Voting Rights Act. And so we have skin in this game, and we owe it to our sisters and brothers who put their lives on the line, who weathered all manner of violence against them, who had to face down hoses, who burning crosses, who had to give up their educational pursuits, their employment, so that this nation would be reflective of who we are as a people and our willingness to be a part of a society that had always discriminated against us. We have the ability to tell that story, and we can all tell it in different ways from our own lived experiences, but we need to connect it. That's what I've been sharing with people, because our children are living in episodes when indeed they are part of an epic. You know, they didn't just appear, out of nowhere. There were people who sacrificed. There were people who had the courage to migrate. There were people who gave up everything, sold off everything they owned to be in the United States of America. They need to know about that sacrifice so that they will fight, so that their children will have the same ability that they've had.
Absolutely, well said,
Gotcha.
Congressmember, and just to fill in a little of the gap, as you pointed out, that the Caribbean American in the struggle for freedom, civil rights, and voters' rights played significant role. As you know, in the civil rights movement, you had the Harry Belafonte, you had Cleveland Robinson, you had Stokely Carmichael. These were people who of Caribbean heritage. Portier, and so and I'm sure Dale will be able to fill us in that we have a history of fighting with our brothers, and that shouldn't change now. it should be, as the Congress member said, we're not an episode, we're in a movement, an epic movement that we have played a significant role in, and we should be continuing to that. And maybe, Dale, we bring you in at this point to emphasize that, or to speak with the Congress member as to how that can be another force or source of engagement.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rodney, and again, greetings to the Congress member. Our struggles throughout the centuries, throughout the years, have been forged by resistance. And we know that our spirituality has been forged and strengthened by those same struggles. And once we start forgetting the spirituality, I'm not going to go into religion, but the spirituality, that which made people maroons, or that which made them gorillas or whatever, it came out of struggle. And have we lost our passion for that resistance? Have we been really and truly informing through education the youth and our people about what our foreparents actually went through, and some of those individuals that Dr. Rodney mentioned, and were they really struggling? I believe one of the things that we need to avoid doing is trying to validate ourselves. And if we do validate ourselves, are we validating it to whose standard are we using to validate that self? Is it to fit into Hollywood? Is it to fit into the music industry? Is it to fit into the counterculture that is out there enveloping our youths, where monies and finances are at the top of their ladder? If that is what we are going to struggle for, then we are going to lose in that struggle. Something has to be forged from that fire that is burning. Something meaningful, and something that is handed down generationally to our people, so that they will continue. When we plant that tree and it provides shade, we are not going to be protected by that shade. It's the generation that we don't even know about that is going to be protected by that shade. And are we going to continue to allow our story to be told when people, by media that is weaponizing words, to weaponizing our spirit? And therefore, it is really imperative that our media use those same words in a very positive manner, and let our people know that they will be free to be themselves, as Marcus Garvey says. None but ourselves can free our minds. And that is where the real battle is going to be won. Gil Scott-Heron said, the revolution will not be televised. So when we talk, if we don't embed these truths in the minds of our young, we have to be very careful. What do we hope for from them? And I will start that, one of the things, yes, I'm going to encourage people to vote, but not just to vote. I'm going to encourage them to vote for you, not for either you or the other person, but for you, Congresswoman. We have to be definitive and definite with who we are asking them to vote for. Yes, it is a democratic process, but you don't want them to just go out and vote for any and anybody. You want to vote for someone who is going to let your voice be heard. Let your voice be heard, but it's only someone who can tell you, vote for me. And I'm going to say, New Yorkers, you're in Congresswoman Clarke's district, vote for her. I'm not going to tell them to just go and vote. Vote for this individual. And I will rest at this point. Thank you.
Well, Dale, you brought up some really salient points, and you're absolutely correct. It is the spirituality. There's a lot of unpacking in our community that needs to be done. We are hardworking people, but oftentimes that comes at the expense of telling those stories to our children, of growing them up in a way in which they can appreciate their own humanity. And as a result of that, they're manipulatable. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done just in terms of deprogramming in education. You know, when you miss one generation, you miss several generations, because it is that knowledge that is imparted from generation to generation that got our people in that resistance mode and understanding what that feels like spiritually and how empowering it is to be able to be victorious in fighting for your rights, and, you know, making sure that it's sustainable at the end of the day. And so many, due to you know, I think a growing and increasingly complicated civil society really gave short shrift to that type of storytelling that speaks to the spirit of who we are as a people, because it's always resident in us. It's how you awaken it and how you sustain it. The pride, the human dignity that we possess has been passed on to us. And so we have to ignite that in others. And that's part of the movement that I'm engaged in. In the Congressional Black Caucus, under my leadership, we are kicking off a campaign called Black to the Future. And I named it Black to the Future intentionally, because I saw the implementation of Project 2025 as an existential threat to who we are as a people. And, you know, I would hear my colleagues lament the fact that they're trying to erase our history. And I said, you know what? That's an oxymoron. You cannot erase someone's history. That history will always be there, but we have to tell it. We can't rely on others in this moment to tell our story. They haven't lived it. And we have to insist on that story being told, whether it's in at the dinner table with family members, it's in the barbershop while people are getting their hair cut, or the hair salon while people are getting their hair done. We need to impart that knowledge to one another. And you have to be unequivocal in doing so, because there is so much that is propaganda that's being pumped out there in that void that, you know, people consume it day after day after day. They begin to believe it. And so, you know, I want to encourage you in this moment, because I truly am encouraged. You know, I come from the tradition of the Maroons. I come from the tradition of a home and a family that understood the value of who we are and what we contribute to our society. And we have to awaken that spirit in those around us. I don't believe it's gone. I believe it's there. It just needs to be ignited.
Thank you, Congressmember. And to Dale's point, when he mentioned he's advising people to vote, and not only to vote, but to vote for a particular person. And I want to revisit to vote for that person because of, and that's why we started out, Congressmember, with your roots, your deep root in the community, understand it, the value, and we need to revisit that over and over, that strangers can't come into our community and expect to lead us. We got to stand with those who have the roots and the pedigree, and so Dale, yes, we're going to tell them who to vote for, and yes, we're going to tell them why. And the why is exactly what the Congressmember just said, that, and which he experienced and represent, the strength of a Black woman with roots that are deep and far-widening. And when we talk about the roots, we talk about, if we don't have those implanted, that the next generation have a knowledge of where they're from, that they didn't come here with purple hair, or they have roots to deal towards. And so thank you again, Congressmember, for reminding us, for reinforcing that. And we are certainly with you in terms of Black to the future, Black from the past and Black to the future. And
that's right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't complete it, but you know, it was important for us to see ourselves in the future. We have to have a vision. Exactly. Right, and that our adversaries want to, in every way, shape, or form, stymie the idea that Black people could have a future in the United States of America, right. And we have to reject that out of hand. And we reject that through our cultural expressions, through our engagement with one another, through education and creating opportunities. We've been some of the most innovative people in the world. And I think that this is that opportunity that we have to demonstrate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our good friend Rex Netherford would say, we are not the third world. We are the two-third world. We are the majority in this world, and we should act and behave like that, that we are in charge. And the man in charge is Mr. SosoBone himself, Trevor Smith. So I'm sure he's ready, Congressmember, to ask this question, and I'm absolutely sure you're ready to answer it. Mr. SosoBone.
Okay.
There you go.
I refer to her as my sister, because she of the Western Maroons and me of the Portland Maroons. I call her Mama, she calls me, I call her Mama, she calls me son. Okay. And we have walked together down Eastern Parkway with Mama. She in her costumes. Okay. Okay. A fruit of our soil. Okay. And so I am so pumped up having just to see her this evening. Okay, we have a mission. And when I talk about a mission, Brother Dale talk about speaking to our people from our platform. The NY Carib News was created over 40 years ago. And that has been the life, blood, and mission of Dr. Karl and Madam Rodney. We had the NY Carib khaki with Roy Astick that was created over 35 plus years ago. That was the mission of Dr. Roy Astick. Okay, so I am lucky to say I met Shirley Chisholm. Okay, I mean, that was in the 70s, early 70s at Sugar Hill Restaurant on Nostrand Avenue. Okay, so I went to the Million Man March, spent days there. So there are things that has bound and binded our community. Okay, and now we are on another trek. Down in Washington, we have a star, we have a match, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. And I've said to her on radio, sometimes when she calls, I said, you are the only one I have. Okay, so, I say, you are the only one I have. Okay, so the dream, when I look, even if there's a barrier between, you are the only image I see. Okay, and I'll tell you this, Brother Rodney and myself, we have been talking about a united media platform, and it is for you, because you are a standard bearer. Okay? You are our standard bearer. You are the general. Okay? And we have to make sure that our people hear from you on a consistent basis, that the message that you have goes out to our community. Okay? Because that is where we grew up. That is why we talk about Mama Una and her trailblazing, the first councilwoman from the Jamaica to serve in the New York City Council. The one who made sure that all our independent drivers in Queens and Brooklyn could be legalized on the road and drive and make a living. Okay? All the things that you trailblaze past, it's now on your shoulder. Because we talk about on whose shoulders we stand. So even as we talk about Nanny and we talk about Paul Bogler, we talk about Marcus Garvey, we have new shoulders that are replacing them, and you are one of those shoulders. Okay? So our people are faced with challenges, and they need to know how to face the economic challenge that you referred to. Grocery bills are going up and it's too high, and their income is not going up. Gas prices have gone up and their income is not going up. And they need words of courage from you, even as you cannot change the income level. They need words of courage. When soldiers are in battle, even if they are surrounded, somebody have to motivate them that they keep on fighting, and you are our leader. So I turn that over to you now.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Trevor. You have been consistent in your support and your encouragement. I'm truly, truly, truly grateful. Let me say this about sort of the bread and butter issues of our community. We have to make sure that our folks understand what is going on. I'm not going to sit here and justify why things had not occurred under different administrations that would be tangible in the lives of our people. What I can say to you is that we have to pay keen attention. When Joe Biden was president, and we keep hearing a lot of propaganda about what he did and did not do, what he did was he worked with Congress to pass some very significant legislation. And what that legislation was capable of doing was directing resources into new industries that would give our young people an opportunity to use their talent, their skill, and their expertise. And that's why Donald Trump rails after him so much. So what did Donald Trump do when he came into office? He divested of all of those programs, redirected that funding into a war, purged the government of workers, many of whom came from our communities, with no cause whatsoever. And then, because he's done these things, have made it such, including tariffs, which have a big impact on the Caribbean, the inflation that we are seeing in goods in the United States of America is what has made it such that the cost of living has become a huge burden for people. We were lining up the opportunities for people to be able to access higher paying opportunities, become entrepreneurs in new spaces that they'd never been. I mean, the whole tech revolution, Chips and Science Act, all of these benefits that would go to our communities, just getting ready to be activated because the bureaucracy moves slow. But what happens in the meantime? We are not in a position to be hasty or hastily move things along. And as a result of the lag, people were buying into a charlatan. Oh, I'm going to bring down the cost of living day one. Who said that? Donald Trump. Here we are 6 months later, and things are only getting worse because what? Not only did he do tariffs, not only did he put everyone into unemployment, he shifted money into ICE so that there would be a paramilitary force on the streets of the United States of America. He made sure that there were tariffs put on countries around the world so that the things that we send home to our families in the Caribbean cost 10 times more, and the things they have to purchase in the Caribbean cost 10 times more. In our own communities, as you said, the grocery stores, the cost of groceries, the cost of gas, the cost of housing, the cost of healthcare. So I say to people, we have to be much more sophisticated with our politics and our power. We have to understand who we have the most influence with and make sure that we use our influence to the betterment of our communities. Staying out of the game is not a choice in this democracy. And when we sit down, we don't understand how to leverage our power. We embolden those who do not reflect our values and who are working day and night to destroy all that we have built.
Well, Congressmember, you have laid it on the line. You have told us what we need to do in clear and very compelling ways. And it is for us to follow the leader, and you are our leader. We know. So you have given us the roadmap, Congressmember. You have been very clear in terms of what we have to do. And of course, you've heard from key members of the community as to what we are committed to do. So we are joining hands in moving forward with you. And we certainly appreciate your taking the time to speak with us, to provide us with the kind of information that we can arm the community with. And we take every word you said to our community, virtually, digitally, print, social, because our community will benefit from it. And we thank you so much. If you have a final word or two to say with us, we'd be delighted to have it. And then we know you have to go on to other things.
Well, first of all, let me just again thank you, Trevor, and to the panelists, Dr. Rodney, for moderating today's discussion. You know, what I do is a labor of love. I know who I'm fighting for, and I know why it's critical for us to be in this fight. And so I just want to encourage everyone in this moment. We have power, but what we do oftentimes is we don't recognize it. And our adversaries count on us not to recognize it, because when we don't use it, it undergirds their ability to mobilize their power. This is a power struggle, and it can take many forms. Under white supremacy, it takes the form of violence. And so we have got to be very clear in speaking not only to our contemporaries, but this has to be an intergenerational movement. Our young people have to know and be protected and undergirded, given the tools to navigate a society that has ruled through violence, and what it means to be able to be victorious. What is the vision for what they see, how they see their lives being enhanced by being a part of a movement that is a part of a legacy that we've all inherited.
Thank
you.
you
Once again. Thank you once again.
Thank you. And the last words are yours.
And let me again thank all our panelists. Thank you, Miss Collette Burnette, calling all the way from Trinidad. Thank you, Brother Dale Brown, who is the secretary to the First World Cricket Hall of Fame, based in Connecticut. And of course, Camille dropped in and she was dragged back into a meeting. So she apologized because she just showed her face short very, very briefly. And of course, our chief anchor journalist, Dr. Karl Rodney, who has been leading the charge through the New York Carib News for over 40 years. Okay, and I hope he has another 40 in store. Thank you, my Congresswoman sister. Thank you so much. And you know,
wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Many blessings, and it was wonderful being with you.
Thank you.